My name is Diego, and I was there when Emily's story changed forever. It was a crisp autumn afternoon on October 12th, a day that promised new beginnings, but instead brought shocking revelations. As she stood in the park, clutching a faded letter from her ex-husband, her heart raced with a mix of nostalgia and dread. She smiled at the memories, yet the weight of betrayal hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of the years she had pretended to be broke, living a facade while her heart was still tethered to him. The scent of rain on the pavement mingled with the earthy aroma of fallen leaves, while birds chirped cheerfully, oblivious to the storm brewing inside her. Her heart felt like it was splintering, and the world around her faded into a blur. She smiled but trembled, caught in a web of conflicting emotions. How can blood turn to poison like this? What nobody knew was that this seemingly ordinary day would unravel secrets that could change everything she believed about love and trust, exposing the truth behind her carefully crafted illusion of being broke, a year spent hiding from herself as much as from the world. Emily stood in the kitchen, the tantalizing aroma of barbecue wafting through the open window. The smell mingled with the fresh scent of rain on the pavement outside, a reminder of the storm that had rolled through earlier that afternoon. She busied herself with the last-minute preparations for dinner, the sound of distant traffic a faint backdrop to her thoughts. Despite the chaos of her family's dynamics, she found solace in the routine of cooking. It was a skill she had honed over the years, a way to express love and nurture those around her. As she set the table in the backyard, adorned with vibrant flowers and twinkling string lights, Emily felt a wave of pride wash over her. She had worked hard to create a life that many only dreamed of, an entrepreneurial success in the tech industry, living in a picturesque suburb, complete with lavish dinners and weekend getaways. She had a vision of the American dream, and she was living it, but tonight it felt different. The sounds of laughter and chatter filled the air as her family began to gather. Tom, her father, was the first to arrive, his broad smile lighting up the backyard. He always wore that same old baseball cap, a relic from his youth, and his warm presence had a way of making everything feel okay, if only for a moment. "Look at this spread, Em! You've outdone yourself," he beamed, taking a seat at the table. "Thanks, Dad," Emily replied, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and the familiar pang of responsibility. She wanted to be the glue that held the family together, but lately it felt like an impossible task. As the family sat down to eat, the atmosphere shifted. The BBQ sizzled on the grill. But the conversation quickly turned to financial woes. "I just can't believe how tight things are these days," Sarah, Emily's sister, said, her voice tinged with frustration. "We all want to keep up appearances, but it's exhausting." "Maybe if people stopped trying to keep up with the Joneses, we wouldn't be in this mess," Jake chimed in, his charm masking the tension that hung in the air. Emily felt her heart sink at his words. He had always been the type to sweep in with a smile, but she knew better now. The betrayal he had dealt her loomed large in her mind, even as she tried to keep the peace. "Come on, it's just a little competition," Sarah shot back, her jealousy of Emily's apparent resilience surfacing. "Some of us don't have it as easy as you do." Emily felt the weight of those words, the unspoken resentment echoing in the backyard. "It's not about competition, Sarah, it's about supporting each other," Emily said, trying to keep her tone steady, even as her insides twisted with hurt. "We're family." "Oh my God, Emily, you always act like you're the one who has it all figured out," Sarah snapped, her eyes flashing with emotion. "It's not fair." The tension thickened, and Emily felt her throat tighten. She had always put her family's needs first, but in that moment, she felt unseen and undervalued. She glanced at Tom, hoping he would interject, but he remained blissfully unaware of the underlying currents swirling around them. Reflection. That moment in the backyard changed everything. Emily had tried to be the strong one, but she couldn't shake the feeling that her family was crumbling around her. As the BBQ sizzled and the rain-soaked pavement glistened in the fading light, Emily couldn't help but wonder if she had made a mistake by pretending everything was fine. The heart of the family, she felt like a fragile thread holding it all together, and tonight, that thread was fraying. "Let's just enjoy the food," Tom finally said, attempting to lighten the mood. "This is great, Em. Let's focus on the good." Emily nodded, but the ache in her heart didn't fade. She had built a life she was proud of, yet here she was, grappling with the reality of her family's struggles. They were all caught in a cycle of expectations and disappointments, and the facade she had maintained was beginning to crack. As the evening wore on, laughter and stories mingled with the remnants of tension. Emily watched her family interact, the way they navigated around the elephant in the room, and she realized that she could no longer hide behind the illusion of perfection. The smell of BBQ brought painful memories, memories of a time when they had been closer, before life's complexities had driven a wedge between them. But as the night deepened, something shifted. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but the atmosphere in the backyard began to change. Emily's heart raced with anticipation as a thought flickered in her mind. What if she revealed the truth? What if her family knew that the lavish lifestyle she portrayed was, in reality, a carefully crafted illusion? With each passing moment, the weight of her secret pressed heavier on her shoulders. She glanced at Jake, who was laughing a little too loudly at one of Tom's jokes, and felt a mix of anger and resolve. In that moment, Emily knew she was at a crossroads. The truth could either tear them apart or bring them closer together. "Guys," Emily said, her voice trembling slightly as she gathered the courage to speak, "there's something I need to tell you all." The air around her shifted, and as she looked into their faces, she could see the curiosity and concern mingling there. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. This was her moment, the first step toward unearthing the truth she had buried for so long. Emily gazed out the window. "What a beautiful day," she whispered. Jake noticed her distant look. "You seem lost in thought." The rain tapped softly against the kitchen window, the rhythmic sound mingling with the chirping of birds outside. Emily stood at the counter, her hands busy rolling out dough for the apple pie she had promised her father. The familiar scent of cinnamon filled the air, a warm contrast to the chill that had settled in her heart since the economic downturn began. She was trying to keep things normal, but beneath the surface, her mind was racing. "Emily, you okay?" Tom's voice floated in from the living room, laced with concern. He had always been a loving father, but he was blissfully unaware of the financial storm brewing just outside their home. "Yeah, Dad, just making your favorite," she called back, forcing a smile that he couldn't see. The truth was, she felt like she was balancing on a tightrope. Preserve the original language of the text while her own life crumbled. She had declared her financial difficulties to the family only a week ago, her voice trembling as she spoke. "I just need a little support right now," she had said, and it had felt like a weight off her shoulders. But now, with every phone call and visit, the outpouring of unsolicited advice and concern began to feel more like a cage than a safety net. As she sprinkled flour across the counter, she recalled Sarah's reaction. "Oh my God, Em, I can't believe this is happening to you," Sarah had said, her eyes wide with a mix of sympathy and something else, something like envy. Emily could almost hear the unspoken words hanging in the air. "Why are you always the one who gets to be the strong one?" "Do you need me to come over and help with anything?" Sarah had offered, but her tone was too sweet, too saccharine, as if Emily's misfortune was somehow a burden that could be shared. "No, really. I'm managing," Emily had replied, but the truth was she felt anything but managed. She bit her lip, suppressing a sigh as she rolled the dough into a perfect circle. She hated feeling this way, burdened by her own need for help, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was watching her, waiting to see how she would cope. Just then, Jake walked through the door, his charm as dazzling as ever. "Hey, Emily, smells amazing in here," he said, flashing that disarming smile that had once won her over. But that was before the betrayal, before he left her with debts she had never signed up for. She could feel her heart sink. Even after everything, he had a way of making her feel small and exposed. "Jake," she replied flatly, trying to keep her composure. "What do you want?" He shrugged, leaning against the doorframe. "Just wanted to see how you were holding up. Heard you've been having some rough patches." "Yeah, well, it's just a phase," Emily said, her voice firmer than she felt. She didn't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing how much she was struggling. She remembered the nights spent crying over bills and the feeling of dread that washed over her every time the phone rang. "Listen, if you need anything," he started, but Emily cut him off, a fire igniting within her. "I don't need anything from you, Jake, not anymore." The words hung in the air, sharp and clear, as if they had been waiting to escape for far too long. Jake raised an eyebrow, his playful demeanor faltering for a moment. "I'm just trying to help, Em." "Help? Is that what you call it? You left me to deal with all of this alone." Her hands trembled as she gestured to the kitchen, the space that had always felt like a haven, now suffocating her with memories of better days. Jake opened his mouth to respond, but Tom walked in, blissfully ignorant of the tension. "What's going on in here?" he asked, looking between them. "Nothing, Dad. Just a little disagreement," Emily said, forcing a smile that felt brittle on her lips. She couldn't let her father see the cracks in her facade. Tom frowned, his loving nature shining through. "You two should really be kinder to each other. Family is everything." "Yeah, family," Emily echoed, her heart heavy. She wondered if Tom would still feel that way if he knew the truth. If he knew that she had been pretending to be broke to protect them all from the fallout of Jake's betrayal, would he still think family was everything? As Tom moved to the dining room, Emily took a deep breath, willing herself to focus. She had to keep everything together, to protect her family from the reality she was living. But in that moment, the weight of her secret felt unbearable. The rain continued to patter against the window, and Emily looked out, her heart filled with a mix of hope and despair. She wanted to believe that things would get better, that the storm would pass. But the truth lingered in her mind, whispering doubts that made her stomach twist. Then Sarah burst in, her voice bright, but with an underlying tension. "Hey, I brought over some groceries. Thought you might need them." Emily forced a smile as Sarah unloaded the bags, the sound of cans clattering against one another echoing through the kitchen. "Thanks, Sarah. That's really nice of you," she said, though the kindness felt tinged with an odd sense of competition. "Of course, we're all in this together, right?" Sarah replied, her tone a mix of sweetness and something sharper. Emily nodded, but as she glanced at Sarah, she couldn't shake the feeling that her sister was waiting for her to falter. What if they found out that I was the one who owned the house? That thought hit her like a bolt of lightning, shocking and unexpected. She had kept it hidden for so long, the secret that would change everything. The house was in her name, a remnant of a time when life felt stable. But now, it felt like a ticking time bomb, ready to explode and shatter the fragile peace she had tried so hard to maintain. Emily took a deep breath. "We need to have a serious conversation." Jake tensed up. About what exactly? The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the backyard. Emily took a deep breath, the scent of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air, mingling with the sweet aroma of the apple pie cooling on the table. She glanced at her family, gathered around with expressions ranging from concern to frustration. "Emily, we need to talk," Sarah said, her voice sharp, slicing through the light atmosphere. "You can't keep pretending everything's fine. It's like you're living in a bubble." Emily felt her heart sink. "I'm not pretending, Sarah. I'm just trying to manage things the best I can." Jake leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, wearing a smirk that always grated on Emily's nerves. "Maybe if you were more open about your situation, we could actually help," he added, his tone dripping with condescension. "Oh my God, Jake, you're one to talk about being open, Emily shot back, her voice rising. Memories of their messy divorce flooded her mind. How could he even think he had the right to critique her? Tom, sitting at the edge of the porch, rubbed his temples, clearly overwhelmed. "Can we not do this right now? We're supposed to be a family," he said, attempting to mend the tension, but his words felt hollow. Emily stood up, her palms sweaty against the cool wooden railing. "That's just it, Dad. We're not a family right now. You don't even know what's really going on." As the conversation spiraled, Emily noticed the shadows stretching longer, the distant sounds of traffic a stark reminder of the outside world. The familial bonds felt frayed, nearly unraveling. "Let's just enjoy the pie," Tom suggested, trying to shift the mood, but Emily couldn't focus on dessert. She felt the weight of her family's financial struggles pressing down on her. They had been so consumed with their own issues, they hadn't seen how hard she had been working just to keep things afloat. Then, during a brief pause, she overheard Sarah whispering to Jake, her words barely audible over the clatter of plates. "If we sell the house, we can pay off those debts. It's a smart move." Emily's stomach twisted at the thought. The family home, the place she had always fought to protect, was now being discussed like a mere asset. Her heart raced, panic rising as she remembered the memories they had built within those walls. "Did you just say sell the house?" Emily interjected, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. The shock on her sister's face was evident, but there was no turning back. Sarah blinked, momentarily stunned. "We were just talking about options, Em. It's not like we want to, but..." "No, you can't even consider that. This house is everything to us." Emily felt her voice tremble, the sting of betrayal piercing through her. Jake shrugged nonchalantly. "It's just business. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions." Emily felt the anger boil over, her heart pounding. "Business? You think selling our home is just business?" The thought of her family home slipping away from her grasp felt like a nightmare. A reflective pause washed over her. That moment on the porch changed everything. The air felt charged with unspoken words, tensions simmering just beneath the surface. "Maybe we should all sit down and look at the numbers," Tom suggested, but his voice lacked the authority it once held. "Numbers?" Emily echoed, incredulity creeping into her tone. "You think numbers will fix this? It's not just about money, it's about family." But Sarah wasn't having it. "You think you're the only one who's been holding us together? You think we're not struggling too?" The words hit Emily like a slap. She had always assumed her resilience kept them afloat, but now she realized how much her family had been suffering in silence, just as she had. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" Emily's voice trembled, and she felt a swell of vulnerability. "I thought I was the only one fighting." Sarah's face softened, a flicker of understanding passing between them. "Because you're always the strong one. I didn't want to burden you more." Jake shifted in his chair, breaking the moment. "Maybe if we sold it, we could start fresh? Wipe the slate clean?" Emily's anger flared again. "Fresh? You think running away from our home is fresh? It's not a solution." In that moment, the porch felt like it was closing in on her, the laughter of children playing in the neighborhood a distant echo of what once was. "Emily, let's not make this worse," Tom interjected, desperation creeping into his voice. But the truth stung harder than any argument. In the porch, it hurt like strength. As they sat in silence, grappling with their reality, Emily realized that this confrontation was the catalyst they all needed. They could no longer hide behind facades or unspoken grievances. It was time to face their struggles together, even if it meant tearing down the walls they had built around their hearts. "I can't believe you did this!" Emily exclaimed. Jake tried to explain, but words failed him. The rain had just begun to patter against the pavement, a soothing rhythm that filled the air with the scent of wet earth. Emily leaned back against the porch railing, cradling a steaming mug of fresh coffee in her hands. The distant sound of traffic hummed like a distant memory, a reminder of life outside her family's little world. As she sipped, she felt the warmth seep through her fingers, but her heart sank under the weight of her family's secrets. Over the past few weeks, Emily had stumbled upon old documents while rummaging through the attic, a task she had undertaken to clear her mind. The dusty boxes had been filled with faded photographs and mementos, but it was the financial records that grabbed her attention. Her heart raced as she pored over the papers, realizing they contained evidence of a hidden fortune, assets and investments that had been tucked away, shielded from prying eyes. "Oh my God," she whispered to herself, her mind racing with questions. The sacrifices her family had made to maintain this facade of modesty, the pride that had kept them from sharing their true wealth, echoed in her thoughts. She had always believed her family struggled, but this revelation turned her world upside down. With the coffee cup trembling in her hands, she felt the need to confront her parents, to demand answers. She pushed herself away from the railing, the truth fueling her determination. Emily found them in the living room, Tom flipping through a magazine, Sarah sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "Can we talk?" Emily's voice cut through the air, and the room fell silent, the tension palpable. Tom looked up, concern etched on his face. "Sure, Em, what's on your mind?" Taking a deep breath, Emily steadied herself. "I found some documents in the attic about our family's finances. We're not broke, Tom. We have money, real money. Why did no one tell me?" Sarah sat up straight, her expression a mix of surprise and defensiveness. "What are you talking about? That's impossible. We've always struggled." "No, we haven't," Emily fired back, her heart racing. "These papers show everything, the investments, the properties, it's all there." Tom's brow furrowed as he processed her words. "Emily, maybe you're misinterpreting." "I'm not. You have to look at them." She thrust the documents into his hands, her frustration boiling over. "Why hide this from us?" Tom studied the papers, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. I had no idea." Emily turned to Sarah, desperation creeping into her voice. "Do you see now? We've been living a lie. Why would you let me believe I had to struggle? I've taken on so much responsibility, and for what?" Sarah crossed her arms, her jealousy bubbling to the surface. "Maybe because you're always playing the martyr, Emily. You wear your sacrifices like a badge, and it's exhausting." Emily felt the sting of those words. "This isn't about me, it's about our family. We could have each other's backs instead of pretending everything was fine." Tom finally spoke, his voice heavy with regret. "Emily, we thought we were protecting you. We didn't want you to feel burdened by our wealth." "Protecting me?" Emily's voice cracked, the heartbreak rising in her throat. "This is the worst kind of betrayal. You should have trusted me enough to be part of this." In that moment, the air around them shifted, the rain intensifying outside, matching the turmoil brewing within. Emily took a step back. Preserve the original language of anger and despair. This was supposed to be a family bond, but now it felt like a fragile web of lies. Tom reached out, his hand hovering in the air, but Emily pulled away. "I can't believe this. My heart sank when I realized what you've done. I've given everything for a family that didn't need me to struggle." The silence that followed was deafening, the weight of unspoken words heavy in the room. Emily turned away, her heart pounding in her chest. She had fought so hard to keep her family together, only to discover that the foundation was built on secrets. As she stepped back outside, the cool air hit her face like a splash of reality. She could see the rain pooling on the ground, a mirror of her tumultuous emotions. Everything she had sacrificed for her family had been based on a lie. The thought of starting anew, of confronting the truth, felt both liberating and terrifying. The distant sound of traffic faded into the background as Emily took a deep breath, the rain washing away the weight of her burdens. It was time to redefine what family meant to her, to confront the truths that had been hidden for too long. And as she stood there, the storm raging around her, she realized that this was not just a revelation, it was a rebirth. "I can't believe this," Emily whispered in disbelief. "I can explain everything," Jake said desperately. Emily stood in the living room, the faint smell of rain on the pavement drifting through the open windows. Birds chirped outside, their melodies a stark contrast to the heaviness in her heart. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past year pressing down on her. It was time to face her family, to come clean about the deception that had consumed her life. As she glanced around the room, her eyes landed on the family photos lining the walls. Moments frozen in time, smiles that felt like they belonged to another world. Her heart sank as she thought of the love and support she had always given, yet felt so unseen in return. It was a bitter irony, knowing she had been pretending to be someone she wasn't, someone who struggled, someone who needed help. "Emily, are you ready?" Tom's voice broke through her thoughts, his gentle demeanor always a comforting presence. He had no idea how close she was to unraveling. "Yeah, Dad, just give me a minute," she replied, forcing a smile. She couldn't shake the feeling that this family meeting would change everything. Once everyone had gathered, Emily looked at Jake, who stood with his usual charm, though she could sense an undercurrent of tension between them. He had no idea what she was about to reveal. Sarah was seated next to him, arms crossed, her expression a mix of skepticism and jealousy. Emily felt a pang in her chest at the sight of her sister. It was time to bridge the rift, but she wasn't sure how. "Thanks for coming, everyone," she started, her voice wavering slightly. "I wanted us to sit down and talk about something important." Jake raised an eyebrow, a teasing smile playing on his lips. "What's the big secret, Em? You finally found a job?" Emily swallowed hard, the words clawing at her throat. "Actually, it's about the past year, about pretending to be broke." "Oh my God!" Sarah gasped, her eyes widening. "You're kidding, right? This is a joke?" "It's not a joke," Emily said, her voice steadier now. "I've been struggling, but I didn't want to burden you all with it. I thought if I acted like everything was fine, maybe I could convince myself it was." Jake stepped forward, his expression shifting from playful to serious. "You should have told me, Emily. We're supposed to support each other." "Support? You mean when you left me to pick up the pieces?" Emily shot back, anger bubbling to the surface. "I had to figure things out on my own while you were off living your life." Tom interjected, trying to diffuse the rising tension. "Let's stay focused here. Emily, why didn't you come to us?" "Because I felt like I was the rock of this family," she confessed, her voice cracking. "But deep down, I felt invisible, like my needs didn't matter. I had to pretend, and it broke me." Sarah leaned forward, her jealousy melting into a flicker of understanding. "I thought you were just strong, always handling everything. I didn't realize you were hurting." "Maybe if I had known, I wouldn't have resented you so much," Sarah said quietly. "You always seemed so put together." "I wasn't," Emily admitted, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. "I was scared, and I didn't want to burden you all. I've been carrying this weight alone, and it's exhausting." Jake's demeanor shifted again, a flicker of remorse crossing his face. "I should have paid more attention. I was so caught up in my own stuff that I didn't see what you were going through. I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't change anything," Emily replied, her heart racing. "But I'm tired of pretending. I want us to be open with each other, to rebuild what's been broken." Tom nodded, his expression earnest. "We can't fix what we don't acknowledge. Let's work together. As a family, we need each other." Just as Emily began to feel a glimmer of hope, a sudden knock echoed from the front door, interrupting the moment. She exchanged confused glances with her family, her heart racing again. "Who could that be?" Jake asked, frowning. "I'll get it," Emily said, her curiosity piqued. As she opened the door, her breath caught in her throat. There stood her uncle, a figure she hadn't seen in years, holding a folder filled with documents. "I heard you all were having a family meeting," he said, his voice steady. "I think it's time we talk about the family legacy and what it truly means to support one another." The unexpected arrival sent shockwaves through the room, leaving Emily stunned. She had wanted a chance to heal her family, but this twist was entirely unexpected. The weight of her past year felt lighter, yet the future now loomed larger than ever. "Let's sit down," her uncle continued, his eyes scanning the room. "There's much we need to discuss." As she returned to the living room, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something monumental. Perhaps the path to healing wasn't just about her confession, but the connections they would forge together moving forward. Emily clenched her fists. "I don't want to hear any more excuses." Jake hung his head. "I'm truly sorry." The living room was thick with tension, the air almost electric as Emily took her place in the center, her heart racing against her ribcage. The distant hum of traffic outside faded into the background, replaced by the pounding of her own thoughts. The smell of fresh coffee wafted from the kitchen, mingling with the faint scent of rain on the pavement. She could see her family gathered around, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. This was it, the moment she'd been dreading for a year. "Emily, are you okay?" Tom asked, his brow furrowed. He had always been the anchor of their family, blissfully unaware of the deeper currents swirling beneath the surface. But today, she couldn't afford to hide. "Okay? No, I'm not okay," Emily exclaimed, her voice rising with the intensity of her emotions. "I've been pretending for a year that everything is fine while I've been drowning in debt and shame." The words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered. "Oh my God," Sarah gasped, her face paling as she clutched her arms tightly. "You've been lying to us this whole time?" "I didn't want to burden you," Emily replied, her voice trembling. "I thought I could figure it out alone, but I was wrong. I'm so tired of pretending." Her heart sank as she felt the weight of their scrutiny, the disappointment etched on their faces. Jake, leaning against the wall, crossed his arms, a smirk playing on his lips. "You could have just told us, Emily. Instead, you chose to keep us in the dark. Why should we trust you now?" His words stung, a reminder of the betrayal that had led her to this point. "Trust?" Emily echoed, feeling a rush of anger bubble up. "You think I would have lied if I didn't feel like I had to? You're the one who left me to pick up the pieces after you walked away. I didn't choose this." "Stop it!" Sarah shouted, her voice breaking. "You're not the only one struggling, Emily. We all have our issues, but you made it seem like you were perfect, like you didn't need any help." The storm brewing in the room was palpable, each word like a raindrop falling harder. Emily's mind raced, the guilt and shame threatening to drown her. But as she looked around at her family, she realized they needed to hear more than just her confession. "Listen," she said, her voice steadier now. "I know I hurt you by not being honest, but can we talk about why I felt I had to hide? I thought being strong meant not showing weakness. I didn't realize how isolating that would be." Tom shifted uncomfortably, trying to process her words. "But Emily, we're family. You could have come to us," he said softly, his eyes searching hers. "I know," she said, tears welling up. "I thought I had it under control, but when Jake left, it shattered me. I didn't want to drag you all down with my problems." A silence fell over the room. The only sound was the soft patter of rain against the windows. Then, to her surprise, Uncle Mark, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, stood up. "I want to say something," he declared, his voice booming and steady. "I've been watching this unfold, and I want to share my own story. I've been in a similar situation, and it's hard to admit when you're struggling, but we must talk about these things. We can't keep pretending everything is fine." "What do you mean?"
Sarah asked, her eyes narrowing. "I've lost my job before, and it broke me. I didn't want to tell anyone because I thought I would be judged. But when I finally opened up, it was like a weight lifted. We need to create a space where we can share our vulnerabilities without fear." Emily felt a flicker of hope as she listened to her uncle. His words resonated with her, and the tension in the room began to shift. She watched as Sarah's expression softened, her anger replaced by understanding. "I didn't know," Sarah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry for being so harsh. I want you to be okay." "I want that too," Emily replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. "But I can't do it alone. I need all of you."
The walls of defensiveness started to crumble, and Emily could sense the possibility of healing. But just as she felt a glimmer of hope, Jake interrupted. "This is all well and good, but it doesn't change the fact that you've been dishonest, Emily. How can we trust you when you've hidden this for so long?" Emily's breath caught in her throat. "Trust is built, Jake. I'm here now, ready to be honest. I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, but I hope we can start rebuilding." Her uncle stepped closer, nodding in support. "You're not alone, Emily. We'll figure this out together. This family needs to talk openly about everything, especially finances. We have to break the cycle of silence." As the rain poured down outside, Emily felt a surge of emotion. The confrontation had shifted into a conversation, a real opportunity for connection rather than division. "I can't believe this is happening," she murmured, wiping away tears.
My heart sank, thinking I'd have to bear this alone forever. "Maybe it's time we all let go of the masks," Tom suggested, his voice filled with warmth. "We're family, and we need to support each other, flaws and all." In that moment, the air felt lighter. Emily could see the cracks in their relationships starting to mend, the first signs of healing emerging from the storm. She realized that the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful. "Enough!" Emily shouted, her voice echoing. "Please, let me speak," Jake pleaded. "There's nothing left to say," Emily finalized. The living room was filled with a tension that hung in the air like the sweet aroma of fresh coffee brewing in the kitchen. Emily stood at the center, her heart still racing from the revelations shared moments before. She could feel the weight of her family's eyes on her, a mix of disbelief and concern etched on their faces. The wind chimes outside tinkled softly, a haunting reminder of the fragility of the moment. "I can't believe this," Sarah finally broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've been living like this all year, and none of us knew?" The incredulity in her tone cut deeper than Emily had expected. It was as if her sister's envy had morphed into a dagger, pointed straight at her heart. "I didn't want to worry you," Emily replied, her voice trembling. "I thought I could handle it on my own. I thought I had to." Tom shifted uncomfortably, his brow furrowed. "We're family, Em. We can face anything together. You should have trusted us." His words were gentle, but they stung like a confession of his own obliviousness to her struggles. Emily looked at her family, the faces she had spent her life supporting, and felt a flood of regret. "I just wanted to keep everything together. I didn't want you to see how broken I felt." "Broken?" Jake's voice was laced with sarcasm. He had been silent until now, lurking at the edge of the conversation. "You don't get to play the martyr here, Emily. You chose to hide this from us." "Oh my God, Jake!" Emily's frustration bubbled over. "This isn't about you. It's about me trying to survive after you left me with nothing." The room fell silent again, the tension thickening as the reality of her words settled. In that moment, a realization dawned upon Emily. This wasn't just about her struggles. It was about the bonds they had neglected, the assumptions they had made. The smell of fresh grass wafted in through the open window, a stark contrast to the heaviness of her confession. "Maybe we should sell the house,"
Sarah suggested hesitantly, her eyes darting toward Tom. "It's too much for us to handle now." "No," Emily interrupted, her voice firm. "This house is our history. We can't just throw it away." She paused, considering her next words carefully. "What if we turned it into a community center?"
We could honor our past while building something new for our future. The suggestion hung in the air, met with silence. Emily's heart sank as she awaited their reactions, half expecting rejection. But then she noticed Tom's expression soften, a glimmer of understanding in his eyes. "I like that idea," he finally said, breaking the stillness. "It could bring us together and help others too." Jake, though reluctant, nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess we could do something meaningful with it." A sense of relief washed over Emily as her family began to rally around her idea. For the first time, they were discussing plans and dreams instead of blame and shame. Cultural reflection. In the living room, the transformation began as they embraced the light of hope. As they brainstormed ideas for the community center, Emily felt the cracks in their trust slowly mending. They shared financial goals, openly discussing how to support each other moving forward. It was a new chapter, and for the first time in a long while, Emily felt seen. "Let's promise to communicate better," Sarah said, her voice steady. "No more pretending. We're in this together." "Agreed," Tom added. "We need to be a real family again." And for the first time, Emily felt like she belonged in that family, not just as the caretaker, but as an equal. But just as the mood lifted, a shadow crossed her mind. What if their newfound connection was as fragile as the wind chimes outside? The smell of fresh coffee brought painful memories of solitude, but now it blended with hope. As the evening wore on, laughter and ideas filled the room, but Emily couldn't shake the nagging feeling that betrayal still lingered beneath the surface. It was then she understood that trust is a delicate dance, and while they were taking steps forward, the past still echoed in the corners of their hearts. "Let's make a pact," Emily proposed, her voice steady but her heart racing. "We all commit to being honest with each other, no matter how hard it is." "Deal," Sarah and Tom said in unison, while Jake hesitated before finally nodding. The future felt uncertain, but for the first time, it also felt promising. "Sometimes you have to risk everything to find what truly matters," Emily whispered to herself, feeling a sense of peace settle in her heart. "And you, on your porch, what truths are you hiding from the ones you love?" Emily smiled for the first time in days. "Everything will be okay." Jake nodded. "You're stronger than you know."